on their dreams for that site and not on what we're trying to accomplish. We are supporters of the Boys and Girls Club. We do it all over the state of New Jersey. We are not aware of any direct connection between that project and our site here. And we are always interested in seeing the Boys and Girls Club succeed and provide the kind of services they do to the young men and women of our state, and that's not going to change. So I'm not sure if that answers exactly what you're looking for, but that's...
Yeah, that's the perfect answer, absolutely. And I certainly hope that those who are in our viewing audience who have made an incorrect connection, were able to hear you and can pass it on. My final question, and it's more important, the most important, well, I shouldn't say, it's very important to me, and that is, what's the financial benefit of what you propose to do to the city and to the residents of the city?
Well, we will put
other than making sure that if there's another major storm, I mean, I get that. But
no little thing.
What's the financial?
And the cost of blackouts, I could go down that road, but I got you loud and clear. So first off, we estimate roughly that the site will become a taxpayer that it is not now, and will pay roughly around, and this number is not intended to be precise because the studies are still being done, about $200,000 a year in property taxes. We are going to clean up the environmental damage on that site that will be probably quite burdensome to find others to do as well. We are going to be constructing a facility there, and we're going to be talking about ways to make sure that that construction doesn't just happen without any local participation as well. And then there is potentially other things that can be done as the dialogue goes along with our community partners to make sure that our success is matched by their success. They have, as I understand it, some plans to develop that area that we have walked into the middle of. And instead of being a thwarter of the community's dreams and aspirations, perhaps we can find a way, as the dialogue goes on, to become partners to help them actually facilitate those things. I would be very challenged to hear the developer who's selling his dreams talk about how much money they're going to spend on environmental remediation to make that property safe for the public to use again. And maybe they will, but maybe they won't, but we are prepared to do that. And then I'm afraid to make any promises, but I'm committed to you in front of everybody in the cameras that we're going to have that dialogue and explore those challenges, and that those of you who do know me know that we're going to listen and try to find ways to have public service become a partner to the community. And that dialogue has not happened yet, and it's been made quite clear to me that it hasn't happened yet and that we better fix it or we're going to pay for it.
Okay. Finances. So I didn't hear in your response anything about employment. When I said
did not
financial,
say anything about employment. That's why you didn't hear it. That's a tricky subject, and that's one that I think is going to become a product of that dialogue. The station itself, the number of employees, Mr. Hawley can tell you, won't be that many. It's going to be the construction that you're talking about, and how can we make opportunities available locally? As someone who's been in this chamber in the city for a long time, that's not the first time I've heard that dialogue, and I'm certainly open and welcome to be a participant, if not a leader, from the public service side to make sure we have that dialogue and try to explore the ways to make it happen.
Could you possibly supply us with a guesstimate of the number of employees you will need during construction?
Yes.
And post-construction employment as well?
I didn't introduce the other members of the team. I slided them. I'm sorry, Councilman. I just introduced, Everton Scott, you do know, and he will make himself available absolutely to make sure all that information has gotten to you. That's John Margaritas also, who is in public affairs in the group that constructs these stations around the state of New Jersey. And next to him is Art Guida, who's our Director of Regional Public Affairs, which means it's his responsibility in the about 310 towns we provide service to every household to make sure that we are properly engage with the elected officials to make sure that we are able to do our job and also be a respected member of that community. So having said that, Everton Scott will be in touch with you, and any information that you or any other council people want or think is appropriate, we will make sure we provide it to you.
I'd like that as soon as possible.
Council President.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm finished.
I'm sorry, now, Council President.
Councilman Sharif.
So, and I tried to write down precisely what you said as you led into your remarks. And first of all, welcome, and thank you for coming to the council chambers. You said, as PSE&G has become increasingly aware of the community's aspirations, I would argue that they're a little more than the aspirations of a community. Okay. Now, I'm going to hold up two documents. One, this is the second volume of the city's master plan.
Okay.
And they spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to host meetings in every single ward to hear from residents to inform this plan. This plan is the Fairmont Neighborhood Strategic Plan. And this is a plan that took 2 years to complete. The connection between these two documents, it is, and this isn't, it's on page 151, and there's a whole section on the Fairmont neighborhood planning. For this Fairmont neighborhood strategic plan, the core group of people that guided that plan was a neighborhood planning committee, and there were stakeholders from the surrounding 80 block area that participated in this plan. But a key member of that neighborhood planning committee was the city of Newark. And so as you read this document in the master plan, it really is more than aspirations. It talks with painful specificity and detail about what was contemplated over that 2-year process. I'm sure we're going to get treated to a wonderful primer on the value of switching stations, the need to have it to provide energy to downtown, but that is not the issue at all. There has been a big, huge disconnect between this administration and PSE&G. So I'm more interested in finding out who had conversations with whom and when. Not with the community, because this is really like a slap in the face and an insult to the community that a decision has been made to build a switching plant in the neighborhood where prior to the decision for 2 years, very, very serious conversations and a lot of activities. You know, they kicked this process off with a resident survey, talked to no fewer than 450 individuals in that 80 block area, had numerous focus groups, and at no time during this process, and there was a member of the city's planning department that participated in many of those things, at no time did anybody mention the building of this switching station. And I got an opportunity to look at a picture of it, and it really looks like a prison. 30-foot walls, 80-foot antennas, literally right in the middle of this plan. So you know, and I've got a vivid and fertile imagination, but it really escapes my ability to imagine now, right after the deal has been done, that you're going to have any conversation with the community that that will come to any kind of compromise that will be respectful to the people in that neighborhood. And I'm passionate and attached to this project because before I came here on the council, I was a person knocking on the doors. And you know what? Somebody said to me, more than a few people said, Mr. Sharif, I don't know why we're going through this. We go through this all the time. We get invited to meetings, they listen to us, but at the end of the day, they do precisely what they want to. And the they that they're referring to are the powers that be. And you know what? In a very eerie way, that person was very, very prophetic about what they said. Because here we are now at the 11.5 hour, right? And all the wonderful people that you introduced us to, I'm sure they have expert knowledge on the value of this project. But that's not the issue here. Nobody here is going to dispute why this is a valuable investment for this city. The issue here is whether or not in those early conversations to develop this document, right, in the early conversations between the administration and PSE&G, whether or not a more suitable site could have been selected. Now, I'm told that even if this, because we have no jurisdiction over this, we can't say whether or not this is a thumbs up or a thumbs down, but I think the Planning Board or Board of Adjustment has jurisdiction. But then I'm told even if the Planning Board chooses not to approve this process, PSE&G can appeal to the Board of Public Utilities, which could override that decision. And so I don't know what the conversation or dialogue could be at this point with the residents in that area, with the community-based organizations in that area, because you're coming here to say, we've made a decision. And so we're going to, on February the 25th, go to 13th Avenue School and tell these folks that, you know what, this thing that we've dropped right down in your community, you have no say. And forget about those 2 years where you went to all those meetings and we talked about all these incredible things. This document represents the heart and soul of community-based empowerment. Right. among the residents in that neighborhood. And so you're saying throw this document away because the decision has been made between PSE&G and a private owner of that property, and now we're going to explain to you what essentially we're going to shove down your throat. Because there's no part of this project, I haven't seen the plans, that is going to be modified in any way to address the serious concerns that these residents and these organizations have. That's not going to happen. So I prefer, right, for that to be put on the record. Because this is not negotiation is where both sides want what they want, but at the end of the day, they don't get what they want, but they walk away from the negotiating table at least getting some of what they want. And so there's nothing in this whole thing, when the community walks away, although they might be a little disappointed, that they will say, you know what, at least we were respected as a result of this negotiation. And so I'm delighted to hear about how all of this works, and it is important, but that's not why you're here, to explain how a switching station works and the power that it's going to feed to the businesses down here in Panasonic. I get that. I'm here, and we have the wrong people here. We need people from the planning department. We need, and to say to them, when you were appointed to be part of this neighborhood planning committee, at what point were you told that this was in the works? That's what we need, and you're very eloquent and very persuasive, and I appreciate that. But that's not what I want to hear. There's a different kind of conversation and different people that should be before this mic, and that's not PSE&G. I know what the plan is, and I know what was told to me. So so I wanted to put that on the record because it's important, and it's no wonder why people come to these council meetings, and rightly so. They say this council has no power to do anything. But it's because of these kind of deals that happen to get made every single time, and they try to explain them after the fact. That's exactly why people in this town get riled up, and with great justification.
Mr. Chair,
Council President.
I'd like to piggyback before Rick responds. Thank you. So the councilman said it better than I could on a lot of levels. I want to go back to one point that he made, and I see Mike Myers is here. Understanding that provision, so what I'm angry at, I don't get angry at churches, I'm angry at provision of promise as a first level, because my understanding is, and I know you're going to address this personally, is that PSE&G consulted with them to purchase this property. My issue has always been the provision of promise has not worked with our community groups to develop this plan that the councilman pointed to, did not have the decency to come to those of us in leadership to even talk about what they wanted to see at that particular site in compliance with that plan. But my other concern is, and the city's going to address this, is my other understanding that the city actually provided PSE&G with a list of potential sites, and that this was a potential site that you could use. And so I'm not saying that PSE&G comes in as guiltless, but you came with the assistance of the city to say this is a location you can think about as a switching station to purchase, and that provision of promise then entered into a negotiation with you all to do that without, again, any knowledge of us. And as the councilman clearly pointed out, that the city helped to pay for the development of this plan, worked with us to develop this plan. And so I don't know how in tarnations, even though it's a private property and it's for sale, that they would even show you that property to put a switching station there. That's what eludes me. And I know you can't speak to that. I'm hoping Mike can or Adam can, because I'm perplexed beyond perplexation about that. Secondly, it does speak to what we would like to see at that particular location. And it seems that we did not get the support we needed from the city's vantage point to help us find people or potential purchasers for that. I do know there were certain supermarkets that had expressed interest there. And I don't know if that's a city breakdown or if that's a provision of promise breakdown with seeing that going forward beyond that. But the problem that we have here, and I always, in the discussions we've had about this, we all know we need a switching station somewhere. We all know what the benefits of it is in terms of power. Our concern has always been, why that site? Why is there not a better site? Is there not a way to do development on that site that is in compliance and with the congruency of the community plan that was developed by all of us? That is why you have the kickback. And I support that kickback. I support, as well as a number of my colleagues, as well as Freeholder that is here, Rufus Johnson, as well as Senator Ronald L. Rice, and our consternation about that. When I spoke to the newspaper about why I had issues with the Boys and Girls Club purchase and why I had issues with the purchase of the site by provision of promise, I said it's because it seems that private development does not take into account public documents that express the will of the community. And so we constantly do this process, and then the community comes to us and say, what was the use? Why did we do it? What was the purpose of it in the first place? If private folks are not going to adhere to it, if the city is not going to strongly advise to it, then why are we doing it? And my question is to my own self is, why do I bother? If people are going to do what they want to do in the interest of expediency or the interest of money, or in the other interests of things that, while we know that they are needed, it's why is it always in my backyard and at our expense? And after the community is brought together to talk about what we do want aspirationally, and we not only put it in a plan, but we put it in a master plan. And we adopt it. In some kind of way, city leadership or private leadership gets together and decides we're going to do something else. That's the consternation that my council colleague more eloquently said than I did. But that's what the community is upset about, riled about, and upset about. And it's not we're mad at PSE&G. It's not that we find fault with you, but you needed a place, somebody showed you a place, you made a deal with someone, and boom, we found out after it was all done. The complicity and the fault lies, as my colleague said, at the beginning of this process. And I have to question all processes then that happened thereafter.
Mr. President, can I quickly, respond? I believe in telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, even if it hurts you sometimes. I must let you know that I was a part of introducing provision of promise to PSE&G. I knew that Apostle Leonard wanted to sell his property. And I was approached by PSE&G after I had a conversation, and I'm putting this on the record because I don't ever want anyone to say I did something and did not fully provide what I did and why I did it. The conversation was quick, and I said, I know a place that is for sale. The church wanted to move, and because I know the pastor and the people well, I'm reluctant to think that they entered into some kind of conspiratorial agreement. That's my opinion. I know them very well, as do you, come to think of it. There was no indication from PSE&G that this was going to be something that was negative. I participated in the Fairmount development plan, had many discussions about the master plan which, and Adam is well aware of it, that did not conform to the Fairmount plan. But unlike my collegiate colleague over here, I don't read every word. And for that, I apologize. In fact, I may have to change my MO. I may have to start reading every single sentence to make certain. I am so sorry that we are at this point in the discussion when I always said there needed to be a community meeting. I always, because whenever we do something, we have to respect the people who make it possible for us to live here. But I am so sorry that I have put the community and the corporate, and PSE&G has been a good corporate partner, a good community partner, that I have put this, what pits the community and corporate Newark against one another, because it is against right now. I can hear it. I also don't think that the person from PSE&G would call our conversation a conspiracy. It was a matter of, oh, gee, and I'll be honest, you know, so much of our city is tax exempt, and we desperately need to give relief to the homeowners. We need to find a way to not have to raise their tax. And I said to I remember saying to myself, I may have said it to the person, boy, this takes this out of the nonprofit, tax exempt column and puts it into an income revenue for, you know, through the taxes that you will pay. That was my purpose for doing this. And I almost said, I'm sorry, Mr. Thigpen, that $200,000 is not enough. But that's a conversation for another day. When you mentioned, when I asked what's the financial benefit to the city, I was talking about the amount of taxes that you would pay. But so just, we can have this conversation about how much, well, anyway. So I want everyone to know, even those who are watching, and especially those who have opinions, you know, in the neighborhood, I can honestly say, and this is a confession, I would never do anything knowingly to hurt the city of Newark, hurt our residents. And for what is taking place, I accept responsibility. I really
Council
do.
President, I'm sorry. I know Mr. Thigpen is going to respond, but I just want to respond directly to my council colleague and put this on the record. In no way am I even implying that you had any role in it. I mean, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. You hear one stakeholder in this city, and for me, my argument really isn't even with PSE&G, because as my council colleague said, they have presented with a challenge, and they're trying to solve this problem, and they will take whatever is given. My argument in anger really is directed to this administration, because they went all in with this master plan development project. And when you read the pages very, very specifically, right, so they attached a certain amount of importance to the Fairmont plan, because that's why it's in the master plan. And so immediately, so the administration should have, we have a lot of inventory, and the criteria that Mr. Thigpen laid out for the selection of that property. Now, if somebody says to me, nowhere in the 26 whatever square miles of this town can we find suitable land to satisfy that criteria, then that's one thing. But I don't believe that is the case. I don't believe that is the case. So my argument is not with the councilwoman at all. I mean, she participated in the, like she said, in the Fairmont, and supported that, and supports it, and supports the residents in that area. My disappointment is with this administration, who knowingly, right, did nothing, knowing all the work that went into this Fairmont plan, knowing all the hopes and all the aspirations, to use Mr. Thigpen's words, all right, that the residents have. And just imagine how deflated they must feel now, right? That they must feel now. So I've got all day, so I want to have Mr. Thigpen respond to this, but and to see what an appropriate accommodation could be.
Thank you, Councilman. I'll say a couple of things based on the remarks. First off, I use the term aspirations not in any way intended to be derogatory or to minimize the interest or commitment in the community. I guess I have heard repeatedly from some developers that they have lots of plans, and maybe that was attributed, maybe that's the cause of my comments. So your comments are very well taken, and it was not intended by any means for public service to be disrespectful to any of the plans, thoughts, or desires of the community. So having said that, one of the things that are...
Excuse me, to speak. You know, where the community at? Keep hollering the community. I am sick and tired of the same song. Not on my watch. Until the Creator take me out of here. This is it. I had to rush all the way from another.
Excuse me.
Is to be here.
Doc.
Not on my watch.
Please, doctor, please, you're out of order. You will have an opportunity. You will have an opportunity to speak.
He's out of order. They is out of order.
You-
I'm sick of this. I'm not out of order. They is out of order. And you, I'm telling you.
Okay.
You need to be ashamed of yourself, Negro.
This is not right. Please, you're out of order. Continue, sir.
I love you, man. Put them out. And this is Black History Month. You need to be ashamed.
So one of the challenges that were put in front of us are about additional suitable locations in the city, and Mr. Horley is prepared to talk about that. You know, our mission is to upgrade the electric infrastructure. As is being demonstrated by the comments here, right, we've walked into more than we bargained for, there's no question about it, and it's not intended to be at all disrespectful. And one of the things you mentioned was that the opportunity...
Street doctor, I'm gonna, excuse me, the speaker is speaking, please, if you cannot continue, you're gonna have to exit. Because he is speaking, we have given, everybody has spoken.
Nobody knew about this.
Okay.
Man. You didn't put no notice out. You want me to put my Johnny Cochran hat on?
Street doctor.
This outfit. Don't go by living in the ghetto. I'm sick of y'all. Proceed.
Continue.
Okay, so I talked about suitable sites. We're going to talk about that in some detail because that's a big issue, because there are going to be some choices that are going to have to be made about how to address the infrastructure challenges that the city's facing, especially going forward. You also mentioned about modifying the site and that not happening. Well, one of the things I'm certainly here to talk about today is, as is being demonstrated by the people in the room, there's a fair amount of anger and suspicion about what's going on, and apparently we've walked into something that's a process that's been going on for some time. That's going to complicate this extraordinarily, and the challenge of earning credibility and having people believe that that's going to happen is not going to come easily, and I get that message loud and clear. But however, having said that, it's going to require some straight dialogue about how we can explore partnerships to see if this is possible. And if it's the choice of the city that the electric infrastructure does not need to be upgraded, then that's something we'll tackle together at the right time also. So the purpose is to have a dialogue. I've heard that from several people about maybe there wasn't enough notice today. This is not intended to be the meeting. This is intended to brief the council members who are interested about what's going on, so that as we engage the community, you'll have heard facts and ask us all the questions you want. So having said that, perhaps one of the things Mr. Hurley should do is address the concern that I think both of the council people have expressed about, are there other suitable locations to upgrade the electric infrastructure? And you will not be surprised to hear that I will not address the other question about the process and about how some of the dialogue happened. I don't want to pretend like I'm ignoring it, so if you understand, I'm not going there. Fair enough? Okay.
Appreciate that.
So having said that, Mr. Hurley, why don't you talk about suitable sites?
I'm sorry, Rick. I got to stop you because while you may not be able to address that, I do.
Street doctor, you're out of order, sir. And if you cannot, if you continue, I want to request, please. Now listen. We have given you the respect. You will have the respect. You will have the respect on the hearing of citizens to speak. But you are out of order, and I'm going to have to request, or you are going to leave speak in a way, because I don't, well, you will speak at the end of this process. I don't know if they'll be here, but I can't promise you they're going to be here, so. Let's put Councilman Rice.
Yeah, so I do want Adam to talk a little bit about, because you're not in the position to really do that, about how this process started, because I do think we deserve some answers as to what it was. And I believe it was a non-disclosure, which was some of the reasons why, but I need to know how they happened upon this particular site. So, Adam.
Good afternoon, Adam Zipkin again. Thank you, council members, for the opportunity to come up and clear up some of the misperceptions that the council members seem to have about how this process has unfolded. And so going back to some of the questions that were raised around the community process and the redevelopment plan that was after years of work between the city planning division, others in the city economic development department, and the community, the plan that you held up, Councilman, was ultimately adopted. It was then incorporated into the master plan. At no time during the process that plan was being developed was there any discussion or suggestion by PSE&G or anyone else to the city that this site might be used for a switching station. So it was never in anyone's consciousness. It was never talked about. It was never known. It was never internally or externally discussed. The plan was adopted. It was incorporated again into the master plan. And then during that period of time, 2010 probably, certainly 2011 into 2012, and you'll probably hear this from PSE&G as well. PSE&G was, after looking around the city for sites that might be acceptable for what they needed in terms of size and proximity to other PSE&G equipment and parts of the city, they had presented to the city the idea of the Lincoln Motel site next to Bears Stadium as a site for a potential for this switching station. We had worked with them on suggestions for if that was going to be a site they were going to pursue, that the city would want to see retail on the front along Broad Street and other ways that we would want to see the site developed where it would not be just a switching station but be beneficial to the local community there and to fit in with the downtown living redevelopment plan that we've done for that area. So that was our focus with them. In the summer of last year, in June or July of last year, PSE&G came in for a meeting and for the first time presented to us, first of all, information that the site on Broad Street was not a suitable location for them, and again, they can explain why, but my understanding is having to do with the location of the light rail and the highway and things right proximate to that site. For whatever reason, they could not use that site, and for the first time, mentioned to us the provision of promise site. It was not a site that the city showed to them. It was not a site that the city suggested to them. I think we've heard today maybe how they had, for the first time, made the connection with the owner of that site, but before this morning, I had no idea how they found that site, but they found it independent of us. They came in and already were the contract purchaser of that site and were moving towards closing the first conversation that we had in the summer of 2012. Our information that we gave to them was that, consistent with the zoning that was created by that redevelopment plan, this was not a permitted use at that site and that they would need to go to the Board of Adjustment for a use variance. And so from then until now, that has been knowledge that PSE&G has had, and they know that after they engage in the community process that they're going to be engaging in, that ultimately this is something that will go to the Board of Adjustment, to the zoning board, and they will have to make the very compelling presentation that would have to be made by any applicant for why a use variance should be granted. And so while we in the administration and working with the community came up with the plan that created the zoning, ultimately to the point that you raised, Councilman, a private purchaser can acquire land from a private seller. and come in and present the project. And so that's where they are. They've submitted an application to the Board of Adjustment, which the city planning staff is reviewing. It has not been deemed final. It has not been set for a date yet. We are still understanding the implications of the project at this location, what impacts there may or may not be on the local community. But so just so that it's really, really clear, because I know from the article that was being, I was contacted by the same reporter, and it had seemed that you had this perception that somehow we, the administration, suggested this site. Not at all. It came to us. What we have said to them from the first day they came to us, which, by the way, the first thing we said to them is, your next meeting needs to be with Councilman Rice. Thank you for coming to present this to us, but you need to meet with Councilman Rice. But also, you need to engage the community, which has been a message that I've literally reiterated up until, an hour ago in my most recent conversations with PSE&G. And so that's the history of our involvement with them on this site, and we are reviewing the application that was submitted and have not yet, given comments on it or taken a position on it.
Well,
Councilman Wright?
Yeah, I appreciate the...
Excuse me, you're out of order. Excuse me, you're out of order.
See, nobody mentioned the money. When you get up there and start
Excuse me. Street doctor, you're out of order. Councilman Rice. Excuse me, you're out of order.
That's not my community. I'll be back. I'm going to get the community now. I'm going to pull buses up here. Since you don't want to go to them, I'm going to them.
Mama, Street doctor, thank you.
I don't have the money that y'all got, but I got something. Read scripture. Moses wasn't afraid of Pharaoh. And we ain't talking about no human being. It was the government, the stinking government, and y'all still doing the same bull crap.
Councilman Rice, continue.
So this is the bit of the frustration, and so if I mischaracterized what the city's part was, then I do apologize. But what I won't apologize is for, and again, I don't want to cast stones on provision of promise, but the reality is that you may have instructed PSE&G to contact me, which they did, but to the councilman's point of view, they contacted me after the ink was dry on the agreement that they had already purchased. And so, to be frank, I don't mind characterizing PSE&G's reaction when I informed them that I couldn't be supportive of a switching station. And they don't say, why? I said, because it goes against the community plan. They were not aware of the community plan. They were not aware of what the master plan says. They were not aware of that. And in my opinion, that is the fault of the city, because I believe that had they been made aware that this was a non-compliant, non-conforming use of private property within the context of the plan that the city spent money on, that they would have looked someplace else. That they would have said, oh, you know what, this is not what the community wants. This is not even what the community has intended. Maybe we should look someplace. God knows there's probably not a lot of places we can look, but my concern has always been, and that's why, if I was mistaken in that, then I apologize, but that's why I put the city on the hook, because it seems to me that any developer that comes into that area should be apprised of what the community wants in that area, and should be apprised of what we don't want in that area, and that's the whole point of a plan, that you all have it on file, so when anybody comes in and meets with you, or even have a hint of it, this should be able to be given to them. Because when I got a hint of it, I told them I'm against it because it goes against the community plan. And they didn't. And again, they did not know what that was. Now, whose fault is that?
I mean, what they did know is that the zoning that plan created, this was not a permitted use. Whether, they were handed a copy of the plan and said, this is what the exact language is, they were told in no uncertain terms, this is not a permitted use at that location.
They were told by the city that.
And that they would have to go for a use variance to the planning board, which they've now applied for.
Okay.
Council President?
Yes, Council.
So this is where we are, right? So we can't have it both ways, right? So we can't have a mayor who projects all over this country like power and influence, and in this instance where what they want to do they need a variance. And all of the influence that our mayor projects outside of Newark, Newark residents need him now on this issue. And so I would put on the record, for whatever influence this mayor has on the zoning board, he needs to exert that influence because, and this is the question that I need the answer to, if they do not get the variance, right? This is a legal question, and maybe somebody can answer it for me now. Can they go forward with this project?
So I cannot answer the legal question. What I can tell you is that the administration and the mayor have no influence over the zoning board. The zoning board is a board that is appointed by the council, all of the members. The mayor does not appoint the board. We do not. We will present the benefits, the positive and negative criteria of the project to the board as openly and honestly as we do on every project, but you know, we do not control the board. But what I can say, my one last point I'd like to make, Councilman, excuse me, I think we would all be well served to let PSE&G present the project to the community and see if they can engage the community and see if this could become something that both PSE&G and the community together can mold into something that's beneficial to the local community and that there's support for.
I don't have a problem with that, and I didn't mean to suggest that the mayor appoints a single person. Yesterday, on William Street, we had a press conference, right? Something very, very horrible happened, and with force, right, and with vigor and with passion, this mayor spoke to that issue, and in a different way. What is about to happen in the Fairmont neighborhood, I would argue, is equally, if not more, important. And so I would like, right, because he can exert pressure, and I think that's an appropriate role for the mayor. He represents this city first, and those residents first. And so whenever this meeting is for the Board of Adjustment, the same list of media that the mayor's office contacts to bring attention to an issue, this is my recommendation that he does exactly the same thing, and that he moves this meeting right here, right in this council chamber, and he makes the most impassioned argument possible why this shouldn't happen. And all of the influence, because this game is about influence, so we can't hide when we don't want to support something to say, well, legally, technically, we can't do it. It's all about conversations and relationships. And this mayor has advertised his relationship with our governor for over 2 years, over 3 years, and he has gotten to have influence over areas that he has had no business, and the school system is at the top of the list. That's not even on his job description. And so this is centrally and directly, right, related to his responsibility as our chief executive. And so I would ask, with all the influence that he has attached to that office, all of the connections that he has in Trenton, all of the connections that he has with the media, that he call on all of those to stop this project from being there. And now, and for people to come together, and I still haven't heard, because you said, well, the Lincoln motel site wasn't a suitable site. Well, that word suitable, right, it means different things to different people. Is it a site that they couldn't do it? Is it a site that they would have to put in additional money to make it suitable, right? So the same amount of energy, right, that we can apply to things that we want to have happen, I think that we could put on our thinking hats and find another site. But the mayor has to be heard on this issue. Not one of his representatives. He has to be heard on this issue because it's important. It's important.
And I think we should all now, and I know that already in the community, and I've had private meetings with the street doctor, and I know that already sort of emotions are running high in this, and I think, again, I'll just close by saying I think we would all be well served to take a deep breath, let PSE&G have the opportunity to present not just here today, but to the community, to engage the community, and to see ultimately, you know, what comes out of all that before any of us take final positions. But I hear you, Councilman.
No, there's just one final point. And PSE&G can answer this question. So is the purpose of the engagement in the meeting with the community to say, so for example, if 5,000 people showed up at the meeting, so many so that you'd have to move it to a different venue, And there was a unanimous chorus, right, from the community to say, no, we don't want this here. And they signaled that to PSE&G. So is it possible then for PSE&G to say, you know, shucks, I had no idea that there was such resistance to this project in this area for the reasons that we've talked about today. And so now we are going to look for another site. So that is important, because if that's not on the table, if PSE&G is really just going to try to convince the community that this is good for them, then I don't see the purpose in the meeting. So if it really is a meeting where the community comes together, and then PSE&G, after they explain this and they try to do their best job, but still the community says, no, we don't want this here, is it in the realm of possibility that PSE&G, hearing from all those folks, will say, you know what, we're going to engage now the administration and look for a alternative site? That's what I need to know. And that's an answer, right, that we have all the representatives here. There's either a yes or no to that. So I'd like a yes or no to that. Is that in the realm of possibility? That might be one of the many outcomes that comes out of that meeting on the 25th at 13th Avenue School.
Inability to proceed with this project is absolutely within the realm of possibility, number one. Number two is we are in 305 towns in the state of New Jersey, and this is not unique that people do not want electric infrastructure located in their neighborhood or near them. Everyone wants the lights on right when they flip the switch. None of us want Newark to go dark like it did during Hurricane Sandy when it happened. As I started this by saying, we obviously have walked into something a little bit more than we bargained for. I would say that's been reinforced by what I've witnessed today, right? This is really going to be easy, obviously. This is going to be a piece of cake. So having said that, your point is very well taken, Councilman, and you've asked for a yes or no answer, and I'm sure it has not escaped your attention that I did not give it to you quite that simply, because this is a very complicated process. We are not here to wave a white flag and say we're going to run away. We are here to try to engage the leaders in the city in a genuine discussion about this challenge. I've heard you several times about suitable locations. There are certain needs for the electric infrastructure to be located, and we do want to have that dialogue, and that's why the expert's here. We are going to have to work with our leadership, and you're going to have to make some decisions. If I hear very clearly people feel that this is not welcome and not appropriate in their community, you know, I've done this also in towns like Branchburg and towns like, you know, Chatham, and different towns have the same thing, right? So this is not entirely unique. I want you to understand, number one. Public service is now challenged with trying to fulfill a need. We would have thought we might be being brought before you to say, well, what are you going to do to make sure Hurricane Sandy doesn't happen again? How are you going to make sure our citizens have electricity when they need it, right? So that's a possibility if we don't come before you and try to find a suitable location. I am not at all interested in closing the door to finding help to find a suitable location. If you're going to try to, that's not the way to say that, if it's decided by the people in power that this is not that location, hopefully you're not going to try to say not here, and I don't care where else it is because that's not my problem, right, as the leaders of the city. If you're going to say not here, then there's got to be some process to say where. We have brought a challenge for which we do not want. As you've heard, some of the people in the room know me because I've been here before, and I need to have my name called in vain like all of us need a hole in our head. I'm not looking really to do that, frankly. I'm not looking to have my reputation be ruined by trying to locate electric infrastructure inside Newark and try to serve a need that we think is appropriate. So I'm hoping we can have a serious dialogue about this, and I recognize it's a big corporation. It's not always known for its responsiveness, but that's why I'm here, is to try to have a serious dialogue, and I hope we can at least have these facts on the table with you. I've heard you loud and clear about what's going on, and if anything I've said has demonstrated a lack of respect for the community's concerns, and I got to apologize directly to you for that. That is not intended to be how I'm trying to present myself. That is not going to be how we're going to go forward. There are viable options for a partnership where there are people in the community who can win, and we are hoping to be able to have that dialogue. There are lots of challenges, and the gentleman has been very patient, right, about finding a suitable location that's close to the heavy-duty transmission system that's going to feed the city, right? So everybody wants a city to grow, and no city will grow without reliable electricity. Nobody wants Newark Airport going dark or Newark Penn Station going dark, so people don't want to come downtown, or a Gateway going dark. Nobody wants the West Ward going dark or the Central Ward going dark or the North Ward or the East Ward going dark. I know better than to sit here and tell you it's all about downtown. It's not what that's about. This is about serving, as the engineers say, the Newark load pocket. So we have a challenge that's deeper every time we talk, and what I'm trying to do is respectfully engage you all and making sure you at least know the facts, so you do what you've got to do with the facts in mind.
Yes, thank you. Just one more thing, because so this is what, I don't know a lot of things, right? But this is what I do know. If Provision of Promise decided, for whatever their reasons, they were going to develop that property, and they were going to do something else, right? It is true. It's just a matter of just straight up logic. This need still would exist, right?
Yes,
so
sir.
we wouldn't have another Hurricane Sandy.
Experience.
And so, right, and so what I do know, right, is that we all would be forced to put on our thinking caps to find another place. So I do. So nobody can say to me, now there may be added cost to preparing that less than ideal place so that we can do this important project. But nobody is going to insult anybody's intelligence to say that this is the only site that you can do it for the reason that I just said, right? As a private, and PSE&G would not have had the legal authority to go into Provision of Promise and say, you've got your development plan for whatever, to develop your parcel that you own legally, but because this represents the ideal location for us, we're going to take that away, exercise some perverted form of eminent domain, and take it away. I know that would not happen. So, like you said, we would be forced to be creative, and then the administration would have to sit down with PSE&G. They'd have to pull out the city map. They'd have to look at all the land that the city had, and they would have to find another site. Now, this is my recommendation, because I don't want this to be a hot issue. I don't want this to be an emotional issue. That we on the council meet with the administration and PSE&G and pore over every single map of the city and try to scour all 26.3 or whatever square miles and find a place, and then really to put on a grid. So you just have, going down on one road, like all the sites, and then across the columns, the criteria, and then score it. And so at the end of the day, right, if we couldn't find anything, at the very least, what the community deserves is to say that we've been very, very comprehensive and exhaustive in trying to find a suitable site. Because I think that would go down better.
If I may,
than,
you're exactly right.
Than the way we're going now.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. You're exactly right. You do need to be able to make that statement, and I understand that process. I don't think there will be any problem with having public service participate in that kind of discussion.
Okay. Thank you, Council President.
So if we may at least give you a little discussion about the search for suitable locations and give you some sense that this is not just an arbitrary choice, I think that would be helpful to advance that dialogue. Is that acceptable to you? I just want to make sure that's acceptable, that we tell you about our search for a suitable location and trying to fill the need, so you begin to have a sense of the dilemma that we are all facing actually together. Fair enough? Okay. Rich?
I'm not interested.
I mean, this
First of all, Mr. Clerk, what is this? Where are the council members? This is absolutely ridiculous. We don't, never mind the fact that we don't have a quorum. What is half of a quorum? This
Don't
is
speak Latin. I can't answer
this
that
This is an important issue to the community, to us. I think that there should be some censorship when council members walk out and know that they're leaving. We can't even adjourn this meeting.
No, this meeting doesn't need a vote to adjourn.
I'm sorry?
This meeting doesn't need a vote to adjourn. This is a conference.
That's right, we adjourned the voting part.
Right, we adjourned the
But
voting.
still, Maybe it's me. There's something wrong with this. And no, we are not going to play Mr. and Mrs. Nice Guy and assume the chairmanship. There are 4 of them who came together and decided to make a mockery of the process and then expect 3 of us who are left to clean it up. I don't think so. So how are we going to proceed? I'm not interested in, by the way, I have to be honest, in the, whatever this presentation
Right,
is.
so I would agree.
After we
I'm
have
sorry.
until after we have the meeting.
So,
You know, then I may be interested.
So I would say, and I
But
don't
what
want
are we going to do?
Right, I don't want to waste the
don't wanna
gentleman's
waste our
time.
time. There are
And
3
all
of
the
us.
representatives that have been very patient. But I think that recommendation that I put on the table really would encompass this, because after this presentation, you know, we'll have a little more information today about what process you undertook to come to the identification of the site on the corner of Central and South 7th Street. But if we can agree to meet designated council people, and I would yield to my council colleague from the West Ward because it's in his ward, and to you know, develop a framework to, you know, to get through this process, because I think that would be more helpful. And today is the 14th, and I think if we jumped on this thing yesterday, even on the 14th, going to that meeting, you really can you know, give them more information in terms of what process you want to ultimately wind up with this site. But I agree with my council colleague, with 3 of us here, and I think 3 who left. You know, I don't want to waste your time. It's an important presentation. If it's something that is in PowerPoint form that could be emailed to me or given to me on a flash disk, I'd be happy to review it, so that when we did get together, I would be informed, you know, by what you're going to present to us today.
So, Councilman, if I may simply respond to that, I hear you loud and clear, and we came ready today, and we'll come back tomorrow, so to speak, ready to also talk when the time comes.
I appreciate that.
I heard you loud and clear, and I think guessing you probably reflect the sentiment of the West Ward councilman as well, that going through some serious dialogue about the site selection options out there for us will do us all a world of good. And I don't know if my colleagues, I'll speak for them, I don't see any way for us to resist that request. In fact, we'll embrace it constructively. And the sooner we can have that dialogue, the better it is. And the more these facts are on the table, the more constructive this dialogue will be, because not everything being said is entirely accurate today.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And just to Rick, before you leave, so when do we have a definitive date for the community meeting?
We have scheduled it on February 25th at 13th Avenue School at 5:30.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's clear.
Is that? I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm not sure.